General Zixstar had been through many tough situations in his life. He had fought in battles across 17 different star systems. His hard shell-like skin showed the marks and scars from all those fights. People respected him. They looked up to him. But right now, sitting in his command chair felt like the hardest thing he had ever done. His assistant, Lieutenant Murdesh, noticed something was wrong right away. The general kept moving around in his seat. He would shift left, then right, then tried to sit forward. Nothing seemed comfortable. His forearms kept busy, picking up different tablets and screens, putting them down, then picking them up again. "Sir, are you feeling okay today?" the lieutenant asked carefully. The general's compound eyes looked nervous. "I'm fine, just thinking about today's meeting." But Murdesh had worked with the general for 5 years. He had never seen him act like this before. During the biggest space battles, the general stayed calm. When enemy ships attacked their fleet, he gave orders with a steady voice, even when they had to make life-or-death decisions. He never showed fear or worry. Today was different, very different. The morning started like any other day on their massive spaceship. The crew went about their daily tasks. Engineers checked the engines. Communication officers listened for messages from other ships. Everything seemed normal. But the general couldn't focus on anything. He tried to review reports about the human colony they were visiting. The words on the screen seemed to blur together. He tried to plan their approach to the space station. His mind kept wandering. Every time he sat back in his chair, he felt uncomfortable. "General, the human representatives have arrived at the orbital station," Murdesh reported. "They're waiting for us in the meeting room." This should have been routine. The general had attended hundreds of diplomatic meetings. He knew how to talk to different alien species. He understood their customs and traditions. Humans were actually one of the easier species to work with. They were reasonable, direct, and honest in their dealings. So why did he feel so nervous? "Prepare the ceremonial meeting room," the general said slowly. Then he paused. "And Lieutenant, make sure the chairs have extra cushions. Soft ones." Murdesh looked confused. They had never used cushions in official meetings before. Their species prided itself on being tough and strong. "Cushions seem weak, sir. May I ask why we need cushions?" The general's shell darkened slightly. This happened when members of their species felt embarrassed or uncomfortable. "Just do it, Lieutenant. That's an order." As Murdesh left to prepare the room, the general tried to stand up. A sharp sensation made him sit back down quickly. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The events from his recent shore leave kept playing in his mind like a movie he couldn't turn off. Dr. Velinara, their ship's medical officer, walked into the command center. She carried her bioscanner, a device that could check the health of any crew member instantly. "Time for your weekly health check, General," she announced cheerfully. Normally, these checkups took 5 minutes. The doctor would scan him, confirm he was healthy, and that would be it. Today, the scanner kept beeping with unusual readings. Dr. Velinara frowned at her device. She ran the scan again. The same strange readings appeared. "General, your stress hormones are much higher than normal, and there are some cellular activity patterns I've never seen before in your lower body region." The general's forearms tensed up. "I'm sure it's nothing serious, Doctor. Actually, sir, there's something else. The scanner is detecting traces of an unknown organic compound in your system. It's not in our medical database. It's not from any planet we've visited recently." The general felt his heart beating faster. He knew exactly where that unknown compound came from, but he couldn't tell anyone about it, not yet. "Have you been exposed to any new substances during your recent shore leave?" Dr. Velinara asked professionally. The question hung in the air like a dangerous secret. The general looked around the command center. Several crew members were listening to their conversation. He couldn't answer honestly, not here, not in front of everyone. "Doctor, can we continue this conversation in private?" "Of course, sir. But General, if there's been some kind of contamination, we need to know immediately." The health of the entire crew could be at risk. As they walked toward the medical bay, the general's mind raced. How could he explain what had happened without revealing the whole truth? How could he tell his medical officer that his recent visit to a remote space station had changed everything he thought he knew about himself and his species? The corridors of their ship felt longer than usual. Every step reminded him of his current discomfort. Crew members saluted him as he passed, but their faces showed concern. Word travels fast on a spaceship. Everyone already knew something was wrong with their commanding officer. In the medical bay, Dr. Velinara closed the door and activated the privacy shields. Now they could speak freely without anyone overhearing. General, I've been your doctor for 8 years. I've treated your battle wounds, helped you through space sickness, and monitored your health through countless dangerous missions. I've never seen readings like this before. She showed him the scanner display. Strange patterns of biological activity lit up the screen in colors he had never seen before. These readings suggest that your nervous system has been activated in ways that our species typically doesn't experience. It's like parts of your body that were dormant have suddenly come alive. The general knew she was right. The visit to Station Prometheus had awakened sensations and feelings he didn't know were possible. His rigid military training had taught him to suppress emotions and physical needs. But the experience had broken through all those barriers. Doctor, what I'm about to tell you cannot leave this room. Do you understand? Dr. Velinara nodded seriously. Of course, sir. Doctor-patient confidentiality is absolute. The general took a deep breath. His confession was about to begin. And once he started talking, there would be no going back. His career, his reputation, and his entire understanding of himself were about to change forever. But before he could say another word, alarms started blaring throughout the ship. Emergency lights flashed red. The intercom crackled to life. All senior officers report to the bridge immediately. Unknown ships approaching our position. The confession would have to wait, but the general's discomfort, both physical and emotional, would follow him into whatever crisis awaited them next. The emergency alarm turned out to be a false alert, just a group of merchant ships passing through their sector. But Dr. Velinara couldn't stop thinking about the general's strange medical readings. She had been studying alien biology for 20 years, and these results made no sense at all. Back in her private lab, she ran the bioscanner data through every computer system they had. The results came back the same every time. The general's body was showing signs of biological changes. That shouldn't be possible for his species. Computer, compare these readings to all known medical conditions in our database. She said to the ship's artificial intelligence. No matches found, Doctor. These patterns are completely unknown. Dr. Velinara leaned back in her chair and rubbed her tired eyes. She had treated thousands of patients from dozens of different species. She thought she had seen everything, but this was different. This was new. The most puzzling part was the unknown organic compound in the general's bloodstream. It wasn't harmful, but it was definitely changing how his nervous system worked. Parts of his body that had been dormant for years were suddenly active and responsive. She decided to do something she had never done before. She accessed the station logs from their recent shore leave at Station Prometheus. Normally, what crew members did during their free time was their own business. But if the general had been exposed to something dangerous, she needed to know. The security footage from Station Prometheus was heavily encrypted. It took her 3 hours to break through the digital locks. What she found made her question everything. She thought she knew about their recent diplomatic mission. The general had left their ship wearing civilian clothes. This wasn't unusual. Many officers preferred to dress down during shore leave. But instead of visiting the usual places like restaurants, shops, or entertainment centers, he had gone to a restricted section of the station, according to the station directory. That section didn't officially exist. There were no businesses listed, no services advertised, no reason for anyone to go there, but the security cameras showed a steady stream of beings from different species entering and leaving that area. Dr. Velinara enhanced the video footage. She could see the general walking through corridors that looked nothing like the rest of the station. The walls were painted in soft colors. There were plants and artwork everywhere. It looked more like a luxury resort than part of a space station. The general had entered a building with no visible signs or identification. The only marking was a small symbol near the entrance. Dr. Velinara ran the symbol through their translation database, the Cosmic Connection. She read aloud, "What kind of place is that?" More research revealed that the Cosmic Connection was owned and operated by a human woman named Dr. Chen. But this Dr. Chen wasn't a medical doctor like herself. Her background was in something called xenoanthropology, the study of relationships between different alien species. The more Dr. Velinara learned about this place, the more confused she became. It wasn't a medical facility. It wasn't a research center. It seemed to be some kind of specialized service provider. But the station records were deliberately vague about what services they actually provided. She found academic papers written by Dr. Chen years ago. Her research focused on something called interspecies compatibility studies. The papers were full of scientific terms, but the basic idea was clear. Dr. Chen studied how different alien species could form meaningful connections, despite their biological differences. But Dr. Chen's academic career had ended abruptly. Her research was considered too controversial by most universities. The scientific community had rejected her work as unethical and inappropriate. Yet here she was, running a successful business in the outer sectors of space. Dr. Velinara realized she needed help understanding what she had discovered. She contacted her old friend Lieutenant Commander Torres, who worked in the fleet's intelligence division. "Torres, I need you to look into something for me, completely confidential." "Of course." "Doc, what's going on?" "I need to know everything you can find about a place called the Cosmic Connection on Station Prometheus. And I need to know about a human named Dr. Chen who runs it." There was a pause on the communication line. "Doc, are you sure you want to know about that place? You've heard of it. Let's just say it's well known in certain circles." The Cosmic Connection provides services that most species don't talk about openly. It's perfectly legal, but it operates in areas that most governments prefer to ignore. Dr. Velinara felt her heart beating faster. What kind of services? Think of it as a specialized wellness center. Dr. Chen has developed techniques for helping different species understand each other on a very personal level. Her clients come from all over the galaxy seeking experiences they can't find anywhere else. But why would our general visit a place like that? Torres was quiet for a moment. "Doc, our species has been focused on military discipline for so long that we've forgotten we have other needs, physical needs, emotional needs." Maybe the general was looking for something he couldn't find in a rigid military structure. After ending the call, Dr. Velinara sat in her lab for hours, trying to process what she had learned. The general, their respected leader, had visited a place that specialized in interspecies personal connections. Whatever had happened there had literally changed his biology. She looked at the medical readings again. The cellular activity patterns made sense now. The general's nervous system wasn't damaged or diseased. It was awakened. Parts of his body that had been suppressed by years of military training were finally responding to stimulus. The unknown organic compound was probably some kind of therapeutic substance, used to help different species overcome their biological barriers. It wasn't harmful, but it had triggered responses that the general's body hadn't experienced in decades. Dr. Velinara realized she was facing the biggest ethical dilemma of her career. Should she report her findings to the high command? Should she confront the general directly? Or should she keep this information confidential and help him deal with whatever he was going through? One thing was certain: the general's visit to the Cosmic Connection had changed him in ways that went far beyond physical discomfort. He was experiencing a transformation that could affect not just his own life, but potentially the relationship between their species and the humans they were supposed to be monitoring. The question was, what would she do with this knowledge? Security Chief Caxamore had a reputation for finding the truth, no matter how well hidden it might be. When Dr. Velinara quietly asked him to investigate the Cosmic Connection, he thought it would be routine research. He was completely wrong. The First thing that surprised him was how difficult it was to find reliable information about the place. Most space stations kept detailed records of every business operating within their boundaries. Station Prometheus was different. Large sections of their database seemed to be intentionally missing or encoded. "This is strange," he muttered to himself as he worked late into the night. "It's like someone doesn't want this place to be found." After hours of digital detective work, he finally broke through the security barriers. What he discovered made him question everything he thought he knew about interspecies relations. The cosmic connection wasn't just a business. It was more like a research facility disguised as a wellness center. Dr. Chen, the human who ran it, had been developing revolutionary techniques for helping different alien species connect with each other in ways that had never been possible before. Her academic background was impressive. She had studied the biology, psychology, and cultural patterns of over 50 different alien species. Her research focused on breaking down the barriers that prevented meaningful relationships between beings from different worlds, but her work had been rejected by every major university in human space. The scientific community called her research inappropriate and potentially dangerous. They said her ideas challenged too many established beliefs about how different species should interact. KAX single quotes more found video logs from Dr. Chen's early experiments. She had worked with volunteer subjects from various species, studying how they could overcome their natural biological and cultural differences. Her methods were unconventional, but the results were remarkable. Subjects who participated in her programs showed significant improvements in their ability to understand and empathize with other species. They became more open-minded, less aggressive, and more willing to cooperate across species lines. When the academic world rejected her work, Dr. Chen didn't give up. She moved to the outer sectors of space, where regulations were looser and people were more open to new ideas. She established the cosmic connection as a place where beings from different worlds could explore connections that their own societies wouldn't permit. The security footage from General Zixtar's visit was heavily encrypted, but Caxamore was persistent. He managed to recover several hours of video that showed exactly what had happened during the general's shore leave. The general had arrived at the cosmic connection looking nervous and uncertain. He had clearly never been to a place like this before. A human assistant had greeted him warmly and led him to a consultation room, where he met with Dr. Chen herself. The conversation between them had been recorded for research purposes, with the general's consent. Caxamore listened to the audio with growing amazement. "General, thank you for coming," Dr. Chen had said. "I understand from your communication that you're interested in our cross-species understanding program." "I'm not sure what I'm interested in," the general had replied honestly. "I just know that something is missing from my life. Our military culture teaches us to suppress our emotions and physical needs, but lately, I've been wondering if we've lost something important in the process." Dr. Chen had explained her research. In simple terms, she had discovered that many alien species had evolved to suppress certain aspects of their biology in favor of survival or social conformity. But these suppressed aspects didn't disappear. They remained dormant, waiting to be awakened under the right circumstances. Your species, for example, has incredibly sensitive nerve clusters throughout your exoskeleton, she had explained to the general. But your military training teaches you to ignore these sensations. What if I told you that there are safe, therapeutic ways to reactivate these dormant neural pathways? The general had been skeptical, but curious. What would be the purpose of that understanding? Connection, personal growth. When you experience sensations and emotions that your culture has taught you to suppress, you begin to understand other species who express these feelings more openly. It creates empathy and breaks down the barriers between different worlds. The recorded session showed Dr. Chen introducing the general to one of her human associates, a specialist in interspecies therapeutic techniques. This person had been trained in the complex art of safely stimulating the dormant neural pathways in various alien species. What followed was a carefully supervised session designed to awaken the general's suppressed sensory responses in a controlled, therapeutic environment. The human specialists used techniques that had been developed specifically for the general species, methods that were based on years of research and experimentation. The session had lasted several hours. Throughout the process, the general's vital signs were carefully monitored to ensure his safety and comfort. Dr. Chen and her team had extensive medical training and emergency protocols in place for working with different alien PHYSIOLOGIES. By the end of the session, the general had experienced sensations and emotions that he had never felt before in his life. His nervous system had been awakened to possibilities that his military training had completely suppressed, but the real transformation was psychological. For the first time, the general understood what it felt like to be vulnerable, to trust someone from a different species, to experience connection without the barriers of military hierarchy and cultural conditioning. The aftermath had been overwhelming. The general's body needed time to adjust to its newly awakened neural pathways, which explained his current physical discomfort. But more importantly, his entire worldview had been challenged. As Caxamore reviewed all the evidence, he realized that the general hadn't been the victim of some kind of attack or contamination. He had voluntarily participated in a therapeutic process that had opened his mind to new possibilities for interspecies cooperation. The question now was what to do with this information. The general's experience at the Cosmic Connection could be seen as a betrayal of military discipline, or it could be viewed as a breakthrough in understanding between species that had been suspicious of each other for generations. Caxamore knew that his report could either destroy the general's career or change the course of interspecies relations throughout the galaxy. The evidence showed that Dr. Chen's methods were safe, effective, and potentially revolutionary. But would the High Command see it that way? Or would they view the general's actions as a dangerous breach of military protocol that needed to be punished? As he prepared his final report, Caxamore realized that the general's confession, when it finally came, would have implications far beyond one individual's personal transformation. It could reshape how different species viewed each other throughout the known universe. 3 days had passed since Dr. Velinara and Security Chief Caxamore had completed their investigations. Both of them knew the truth about what happened at the Cosmic Connection, but neither had decided what to do with that information. The general continued his duties, trying to act normally, but everyone on the ship could see something was bothering him. The breaking point came during what should have been a routine morning briefing. All the senior officers gathered in the main conference room to discuss their upcoming diplomatic mission. The general walked in last, as he always did, but something was different this time. As he approached his chair at the head of the table, he hesitated. The officers watched as their commanding officer seemed to struggle with the simple act of sitting down. When he finally lowered himself into the seat, a brief expression of discomfort crossed his face. Lieutenant Murdesh immediately noticed. "Sir, are you feeling all right? Should I call Dr. Velinara?" "I'm fine," the general replied quickly, but his voice lacked its usual authority. They tried to continue with the briefing. Navigation Officer Theterin presented their route to the human colony. Communications Officer Plexar reported on the latest diplomatic messages. Everything seemed normal on the surface, but there was tension in the room that everyone could feel. Halfway through the meeting, the general tried to stand up to point at the star chart display. As he rose from his chair, he couldn't hide a visible wince. The room fell silent. Even the ship's background humming seemed louder than usual. "General," Dr. Velinara said gently, "perhaps you should rest. We can postpone this briefing." That's when something inside the general finally broke. The weight of keeping his secret, the physical discomfort, and the knowledge that his entire worldview had changed became too much to bear. "No," he said firmly, "we're not postponing anything. In fact, I think it's time you all knew the truth about what happened during my shore leave." The officers exchanged worried glances. In all their years of service, they had never seen their general like this. He looked vulnerable, almost fragile, despite his impressive size and battle-scarred exterior. "What I'm about to tell you will be difficult to understand," the general began, slowly walking around the conference table. It might change how you see me, how you see our species, and how you see our relationship with other beings in the galaxy. Lieutenant Murdesh activated the room's privacy shields without being asked. Whatever the general was about to say, it was clear that it shouldn't be overheard by the rest of the crew. The general took a deep breath and began his confession. During our last shore leave at Station Prometheus, I visited a place called the Cosmic Connection. It's operated by a human named Dr. Chen, who specializes in helping different alien species understand each other in ways we never thought possible. He paused, looking at each of his officers. Some seemed confused, others curious, but none appeared judgmental. Our species has spent centuries perfecting military discipline. We've learned to suppress our emotions, ignore physical sensations, and focus entirely on duty and honor. But in doing so, we've lost touch with parts of ourselves that make us complete beings. Dr. Velinara listened carefully, knowing much of what the general was about to reveal, but understanding that hearing it from him directly was important for everyone in the room. Dr. Chen showed me that our exoskeletons contain nerve pathways that we've learned to ignore. She and her team have developed safe, therapeutic methods to reactivate these dormant neural networks. The experience was unlike anything I had ever felt before. Security Chief Kaxamor nodded slightly, having reviewed all the evidence from the general's visit. What happened there wasn't just physical, the general continued. It was emotional and psychological. For the first time in my life, I experienced what it means to be vulnerable with someone from another species. I learned what trust really feels like when you remove all the barriers of rank, protocol, and cultural conditioning. The room remained silent as the officers processed what they were hearing. The human specialists who worked with me treated me not as a fearsome alien general, but as a being who had the same fundamental needs for connection and understanding that exist in every intelligent species. The techniques they used were designed specifically for our biology. Based on years of research and experimentation, Lieutenant Murdesh was the first to speak. Sir, are you saying that this experience has changed how you feel about humans? It's changed how I feel about everything, the general replied honestly. I now understand that the humans we've been monitoring aren't the savage, unpredictable beings we were taught to believe. They have developed an understanding of connection and empathy that surpasses anything our species has achieved. Communications Officer Plexar asked the question everyone was thinking. General, what does this mean for our mission, for our relationship with the human colonies? The general sat down carefully, wincing slightly but continuing with his explanation. It means we need to completely reconsider our approach. The humans aren't our enemies. They're potential partners in understanding what it means to be truly alive, truly connected to other beings in the universe. Dr. Velinara chose this moment to reveal her own discoveries. General, I've reviewed all your medical data from the experience. What happened to you wasn't harmful. Your nervous system has been awakened to possibilities that have always existed, but were suppressed by our cultural conditioning. And I've investigated the cosmic connection thoroughly, added Security Chief Kaxamor. Dr. Chen's methods are scientifically sound and completely ethical. Her research could revolutionize how different species interact throughout the galaxy. The general looked around the room at his officers, these beings he had served alongside. For years, I know this information is shocking. I know it challenges everything we've been taught about duty and discipline. But I also know that keeping this secret would be a disservice to all of you, and to our species as a whole. Navigation Officer Theron spoke up. Sir, what do you want us to do with this information? I want you to help me figure out how to present this to the High Command in a way that emphasizes the positive implications for interspecies relations rather than focusing on my personal transformation. The meeting continued for 3 more hours as the officers discussed the potential consequences and opportunities presented by the general's revelation. By the end, they had developed a plan that could either revolutionize their relationship with humanity or end all their careers, but for the first time in days, the general felt relief. The truth was finally out, and he was no longer carrying the burden alone. whatever happened next, he would face it with the support of his crew and the knowledge that he had discovered something profound about the nature of connection between different forms of intelligent life. Admiral Thurak had been commanding fleets for over 30 years. She had seen battle reports, diplomatic crises, and countless classified documents. But when General Zixtar's confession arrived on her personal communication device, marked with the highest security classification, she knew this was different from anything she had encountered before. She read the report 3 times before calling an emergency meeting with her most trusted advisors. The High Command conference room had hosted discussions about war strategies, territorial disputes, and trade agreements. Today, it would host a conversation that could change the relationship between their species and humanity. Forever, gentlemen, what we discuss here today must remain absolutely confidential until we decide on a course of action. Admiral Thurak announced to the assembled officers. She distributed copies of General Zixtar's full report, including the supporting evidence, gathered by Dr. Velinara and Security Chief Caxamore. As the senior officers read through the documents, their expressions range from surprise to confusion to fascination. Commander Vextel, the Admiral's Chief of Staff, was the first to speak. Admiral, if these reports are accurate, then everything we thought we knew about human capabilities has been wrong. That's exactly what concerns me, replied Admiral Thurak. But it also presents us with an unprecedented opportunity. The Admiral had already been conducting her own secret investigation into human research and development. What she had discovered corroborated much of what General Zixtar had experienced. Humans had been quietly developing technologies and techniques for interspecies cooperation that far exceeded anything their own scientists had imagined. But because these developments challenged traditional military thinking, they had been ignored or dismissed by most galactic governments. I've been in communication with several human research institutions, Admiral Thurak revealed. Dr. Chen's work at the Cosmic Connection isn't an isolated experiment. It's part of a larger movement among humans to build bridges between different species, through understanding and empathy rather than fear and dominance. She activated the room's holographic display, showing data from dozens of similar facilities throughout human space. Look at these statistics. Species that have participated in these cross-cultural understanding programs show dramatically reduced aggression toward each other. Trade relationships improve. Diplomatic conflicts decrease. The humans aren't just studying interspecies relations, they're actively working to improve them. General Merkett, one of the most conservative members of the High Command, raised a concern. Admiral, this could all be an elaborate deception. How do we know the humans aren't using these techniques to weaken our military resolve? Admiral Thurak had anticipated this objection. I've reviewed General Zixtar's complete medical data. His cognitive abilities haven't been impaired. His tactical thinking remains sharp. His loyalty to our people is unchanged. The only difference is that he now has a deeper understanding of what drives human behavior. She paused to let that information sink in before continuing. In fact, I would argue that this understanding makes him a more effective military leader, not a less effective one. He can now predict human responses with greater accuracy because he understands their motivations. The debate continued for hours. Some officers argued for court-martial proceedings, viewing the general's actions as a breach of military discipline. Others saw the potential for a revolutionary breakthrough in interspecies relations. Finally, Admiral Thurak made a decision that would reshape their entire approach to diplomacy. We're not going to punish General Zixtar. Instead, we're going to learn from his experience. She outlined her plan to the shocked assembly. Rather than hiding what had happened, they would use it as the foundation for a new diplomatic initiative. I'm authorizing a secret research project. We'll work with Dr. Chen and her colleagues to better understand these techniques and their potential applications for peaceful interspecies cooperation. The first step was to bring Dr. Chen to their headquarters for a formal consultation. This required delicate negotiations through diplomatic channels, as her work existed in a legal gray area that most governments preferred to ignore. When Dr. Chen arrived 2 weeks later, she brought with her a team of researchers and a wealth of data about successful interspecies cooperation programs. The meeting between Dr. Chen and the High Command was unlike any diplomatic session in their recorded history. Instead of formal protocols and rigid hierarchy, they engaged in open, honest discussion about the challenges and opportunities of interspecies relationships. Admiral, I want to be completely transparent about our methods and objectives, Dr. Chen began. Our goal isn't to change or weaken any species. It's to help different beings understand each other well enough to cooperate rather than compete. She presented case studies from her work with dozens of different alien species. The results were consistently positive. Participants reported increased empathy, better communication skills, and reduced prejudice toward other species. What we're offering isn't therapy or treatment, she explained. It's education. We help beings discover aspects of themselves that their own cultures may have caused them to suppress or ignore. Admiral Thurak was impressed by Dr. Chen's professionalism and the scientific rigor of her research. More importantly, she recognized the strategic value of what the humans had developed. Dr. Chen, would you be willing to establish an official cultural exchange program between our species? The negotiations that followed were complex but productive. Within 6 months, they had established the first interspecies understanding center, with Dr. Chen as director and General Zixtar as military liaison. The general's role in this new position suited him perfectly. His experience at the Cosmic Connection had given him unique insights into both species, making him an ideal bridge between their different approaches to communication and cooperation. The first official exchange program brought together military officers, scientists, diplomats, and civilians from both species. The results exceeded everyone's expectations. Officers who participated in the program showed improved performance in multi-species missions. Scientists collaborated more effectively on joint research projects. Diplomats found creative solutions to conflicts that had seemed unsolvable. Most importantly, the program helped prevent 3 potential interspecies conflicts by improving communication and understanding between the parties involved. General Zixtar's physical discomfort had completely resolved within a few weeks of his confession, but the changes to his perspective remained permanent and positive. He had become more effective as a leader, more insightful as a strategist, and more capable of building relationships across species boundaries. Years later, when historians studied this period, they called it the Great Convergence. The transformation began with one individual's willingness to explore beyond the boundaries of his own cultural conditioning, and led to a new era of cooperation between species that had previously viewed each other with suspicion. The general often reflected on how the most uncomfortable experience of his life had led to the most important breakthrough in intergalactic relations. Sometimes, he realized, the greatest victories come not from defeating others, but from overcoming the limitations we place on ourselves. The Cosmic Connection had evolved from a hidden establishment into a recognized center for interspecies education and cooperation. Dr. Chen's controversial research had become the foundation for a new approach to galactic diplomacy. And General Zixtar, who once couldn't sit down comfortably after a transformative night, now stood taller as a leader who had helped a species discover their shared capacity for understanding and growth.